All right, welcome. Day 78, I believe. Back at it. Blasting the pipies. Still a little bit sick, but almost better. I'm definitely good enough to train. So we're in there, cranking it out, doing the old behind the head milkers. A little bit of a worse workout. The last session was really good. Some of the numbers bumped up, but this workout, the numbers decreased a little bit. Some increased, some stayed the same. As kind of to be expected, you're going to go up and down. I think part of the challenge is showing up consistently and trying to push for more, regardless. And sometimes you don't get it. It's really easy to get frustrated and get discouraged, especially if you're trying really hard and you're putting a lot of effort into it, to not have progressive workouts, and for some of them to actually be regressive, meaning they're going backwards. That's just part of the game, because some days you're going to be stronger than others. And for me, it's like I'm still a little bit sick. I stayed up till like 2 a.m. the night before, and then I trained earlier in the day, which I'm never as strong earlier in the day. So yeah, is what it is. You have your good days and your bad days, but overall, I think that the biggest weakness for me is recovery. Like, I'm just doing not good enough job recovering. I think my intensity and my programming is pretty good, and I think it's enough to be stimulating growth, but I'm not getting as much out of my recovery as I could. Adding an extra rest day in, which I just did recently. If you haven't watched any of the previous episodes, I was talking about that and how my body seemed to be not responding in a positive way to hitting arms every other day, even though I've been doing that for a year plus, and it has been productive in many regards. I think some of the other things I've changed in my program have then led to the stimulus being more intense and my body not fully recovering. And I mean, sleep plays a huge role in your lifestyle in general. How stressed you are, how busy you are working, doing other shit. It all affects how your body responds to the work that you do in the gym. And it is frustrating to like get to the gym and kind of realize that you haven't maybe recovered properly and you're not going to improve. It's a bit mentally discouraging, but you still have to push through and maintain that consistency of bringing a maximum effort no matter what. And it's a good way to test yourself to see if you can really bring the intensity regardless of what the circumstances or situation is. So I just think it's one of the small things you need to adopt as you go along your journey of trying to build muscle, and depending on how important it is to you and what your goals are and how substantial you want your muscle gain to be, it's going to vary how serious you need to be with that perspective. And if you really want to push yourself, to your natural potential, like I'm trying to do, then I think developing that mentality is absolutely necessary. And that you're going to have days where you're feeling all jacked up and pumped to train, and you're going to have days where you're like kind of sick or like a little bit weak or didn't sleep. And you need to be, the effort and intensity you put in should be consistent regardless of how you feel. I think in the long run that's gonna pay off and serve you way better than kind of floating with the wind and being really jacked up and focused one day because your things are going good in your life or whatever it may be, and then the next day you didn't sleep well, things are shit, whatever, and you don't bring the same intensity, and you kind of use that as a crux or an excuse to not push yourself to the maximum. So it's not easy to develop, but I think once you do and it becomes a habit and a muscle, you can't really break it. And like I would say for me at this point, I can kind of coast because I've just so much repetition of maximum intensity every workout, no matter what, that even if I'm not feeling it, it's not a huge like lift or a huge effort for me to be like, okay, but I need to like mentally still be really aggressive and intense and push to the extreme. It's kind of just like a little, I'm not really feeling it today. But there's no real question. And I think, like, in other areas in my life, I'm not as disciplined and not as, like, consistent with things. And it's that same kind of voice that it just tempts you with the comfortable, easy thing that you actually want. And it makes it hard to discipline yourself and do the kind of hard, uncomfortable thing consistently. And it's interesting to contrast my experience with working out, where for whatever reason I've been able to develop that approach where I just do the thing that's kind of like uncomfortable and unenjoyable, but that will get you to the results you want. But in other areas, not as much. And it's like for example, diet lately. My diet hasn't been as good, what I'm eating. And it's just that temptation to get the mouth pleasure, you know? And I think it's just repetition in either direction. So if you consistently break what your target is, let's say, and you eat the junk food, you eat the bad food, and you do that over and over, it gets harder and harder to break it. It becomes more of a pattern. But the pattern works in your favor in the other direction. If you can start to build up momentum where you don't buy the fucking bag of chips or you don't buy the junk food or whatever, then it gets easier to do it as you go because it becomes kind of like a muscle and a habit. Yeah, so I'm just kind of rambling. But I think that's something that's really a strong undertone with any fitness journey, is developing that. And I'm just kind of trying to share that I'm not like, I've been able to do it with working out, but in other things in my life, not as much. And you identify a goal and you're like, this is what I'm going to do. But you just can't really stick with it. You know, you kind of waver. You're somewhat consistent, but then you run into some adversity. You get to, and you waver, right? And you don't bring that exact same approach that you need to kind of be consistent in the face of how you feel or in the face of adverse circumstances is really sort of what I'm hitting at here. I think it's like with anything in life that you want to obtain, there's an element of that no matter what. And being too attached to like how you feel and what your mood is like, it can be useful because you can channel it. If you have a bunch of positive motivation, you're fired up, you can channel that. But then if you rely on that and then one day you don't have that positive motivation to do whatever the thing is, and you have like a bunch of negative motivation, then it's like, oh, well, it's going to be hard for me to do this. And it's going to be easier for me to convince myself not to do it because I'm relying on how I feel to fuel what my outcome is. Anyhow, here's the hunk of meat showing off the pipes. I think we're making progress. Got a remeasure coming soon. I don't know. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Peace.